You ever looked at your left hand and felt something different? Maybe you've noticed a strange line, a mark, or a feeling you just can't explain. What if I told you that only 1 in a million people carry a hidden spiritual mark, one that narcissists secretly fear and can never erase? This isn't about superstition. This is about something deeper, something ancient. Narcissists are drawn to light, not because they love it, but because they want to dim it. And if you've ever felt targeted, misunderstood, or constantly attacked by the wrong people, there's a reason. That mark on your left hand, it might be the reason you've been through so much. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover could change how you see your entire past and unlock your true purpose. And hey, if something in your spirit already knows this is true, let me know in the comments. Or better yet, subscribe, not just to this channel, but to your own awakening. Let's go deep. There's an old belief, whispered through time, passed down quietly through generations, barely noticed in today's noisy world. It speaks of a mark, not just any mark, but one that appears on the left hand of only a very few. Not a birthmark, not something you can easily photograph or trace, but something felt deep in the soul. It may show as a strange line, a unique symbol, or even just a subtle energetic pull, something about your left hand that feels different. If you've ever stared at your palm and wondered why certain things happen to you, why you attract certain kinds of people, why your life feels marked by intensity, transformation, or pain, this might be why. According to ancient teachings and spiritual whispers, only 1 in a million people carry this kind of invisible signature. It's not a mistake. It's not random. It's not superstition. It's a spiritual identity, a quiet confirmation that you've been chosen for something higher, that your soul carries a mission, that even when life tried to break you, even when others misunderstood you, you were never really alone. You were always guided, even when it didn't feel like it. Now, why the left hand? In many spiritual traditions, the left hand is the receiving hand, the hand that draws in divine energy, intuition, ancestral wisdom, and soul memory. It's not just a physical part of your body. It's a gateway, a portal. It receives the energy of the unseen, and it's often where spiritual impressions are left, whether in dreams, visions, or moments of silence when no one is around. Some say the mark might appear after a deep trauma, or during a spiritual awakening. Others say it was always there, waiting for your consciousness to rise enough to finally notice it. But here's where it gets even more intense. Because where there's light, there's always resistance. Where there's purpose, there's always a test. And that's where the narcissist comes in. Have you ever noticed how certain people seem drawn to your energy? Not in a loving way, but in a draining, confusing, and manipulative way. Narcissists aren't just toxic people with big egos. On a deeper level, they're spiritual disruptors. They sense something in you that threatens their illusion, something they can't understand, but feel compelled to control. The mark you carry, whether visible or not, sends a signal, a frequency. Narcissists pick up on it instantly, because it's everything they secretly wish they had: empathy, purpose, connection, light. They come close, not because they love you, but because they want to dim what you carry. They'll shower you with attention, then slowly unravel your confidence. They'll play the victim, rewrite the truth, twist your words, and make you question your own spirit. But if you've ever felt that, if you've ever been in a relationship where you lost yourself completely, only to rise stronger, you need to know that mark was never erased. They tried, but they failed. Because here's the thing. The mark can't be touched by those who aren't aligned with truth. It might get buried under pain. It might get quiet in seasons of confusion, but it never disappears. That mark is divine. It's your spiritual fingerprint, coded into your very being. And no narcissist, no manipulator, no betrayer can reach into that space. They might hurt your mind. They might shake your emotions, but your soul, untouchable. And the more they attack you, the more your light tries to wake you up. You see, the narcissist isn't just a villain in your story. They are often the trigger that forces the chosen one to remember who they are. Without the darkness, the light might have stayed hidden. Without the gaslighting, you might never have questioned what you believe. Without the pain, you might never have looked inward and found the truth that was waiting all along. That's the paradox. What came to destroy you actually activated you. If you've ever felt like you've gone through fire and somehow came out more aware, you're not imagining it. That's the awakening. That's the chosen one rising. That's when the mark begins to glow, metaphorically speaking. That's when the narcissist starts to panic, because suddenly, their tricks don't work. Their lies fall flat. Their control dissolves. They may try harder. They may lash out. But your spirit is now grounded in truth, and the narcissist can't survive in that environment. Their power fades in the presence of your awareness. What you carry in your left hand isn't just energy. It's a calling. You were sent here to break patterns, to carry light, to remind others who they are just by existing in your truth. The left-hand mark is not about ego or superiority. It's not a badge to show off. It's a quiet remembrance of why your life has been so different, why your path has been anything but easy, and why, despite everything, you're still here. You were chosen. Not because you're better than others, but because your soul said yes to a higher purpose. And that yes echoed across lifetimes. It etched itself into your energy field. It marked your journey before you even arrived here. And now, the world is catching up to what you've always known deep down. That mark on your left hand, it's real, whether it's physical, symbolic, or purely spiritual. It's the reason you were targeted, the reason you survived, and the reason you're being called forward now. Not to fight back with anger, but to walk forward with purpose, to stop hiding, to stop shrinking, to finally trust what you've always felt. You are the one in a million, and no narcissist can touch what's been written by something greater than them. There's something sacred about the unseen, something powerful about what you feel but can't always explain. That mark, whether you've seen it physically or only sensed it deep in your spirit, holds more meaning than most people can begin to understand. It's not just a coincidence. It's not just a strange line. It's a signature, a spiritual imprint, a quiet message from the divine, meant only for those who are ready to remember who they really are. The mark is a symbol that you've been chosen, not by people, not by chance, but by something far greater, by God, by Source, by the very intelligence that created the universe. It's a sign that your soul carries light in a world full of illusions. You're not here to fit in. You're here to stand out, to awaken, to shake foundations. This mark symbolizes a calling, a sacred mission written long before you were born. Some people come into this world to exist, but those with the mark, they come to transform. You've likely always felt different, not better, but deeper. You feel people's energy before they speak. You carry emotions that don't even seem to be yours. You cry at truth. You rage at injustice. You sense when something is off, even if no one else sees it. And all of that, the sensitivity, the struggle, the strength, is tied to the mark. You're a bearer of light. Not because life was easy for you, but because you've been through darkness and chose not to become it. This mark represents a soul mission, one that can't be copied, cloned, or corrupted. You were sent here with something the world needs. Some call it a healing gift. Others call it awakened DNA. Whatever words you use, the truth is the same. Your presence shifts energy. You don't have to speak to make an impact. Your existence is the message. And often, this mark is inherited, not just from your biological family, but from your spiritual lineage. You carry the prayers of your ancestors, the dreams of the ones who came before you. You might be the first in your bloodline to awaken, the one who breaks the cycles, who sees through the patterns, who says no more. That's not random. That's the mark. It's not a burden. It's a blessing. But it often comes with pain, because carrying this kind of light draws attention. It attracts those who want to use it, control it, or destroy it. But no matter what happens, the mark stays. Because it's you. It's your contract with the divine. A reminder that even when the world forgets your worth, heaven never did. And this mark also signals awakening, a shift in your DNA, a remembering of who you were before the world told you who to be. It means your soul has lived before, that you carry wisdom beyond your years, that you came here not just to survive, but to activate others. You may feel called to guide, to speak truth, to protect the vulnerable, to uncover lies, to walk a spiritual path even if no one around you understands it. That inner knowing, that pull toward purpose, it's part of the mark. It whispers when you try to settle. It burns when you try to stay small. It aches when you betray your own soul. That's not weakness. That's the mark trying to wake you up. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you feel it, you can't forget it. It's not a trend. It's not a fantasy. It's who you were all along. The mark is a divine echo, a spiritual GPS, a code etched into your being, one that narcissists, manipulators, and dark forces will never understand, because they weren't given the same mission. They weren't chosen for this level of light. But you were. And even if you don't feel ready, your soul already is. That mark is proof, not of perfection, but of purpose, not of superiority, but of sacred responsibility. The world may not recognize it, but the right people will. And more importantly, your spirit already does. You don't have to earn it. You just have to remember it. You don't have to prove it. You just have to live it. And even when you doubt, even when you fall, even when you question everything, the mark remains, waiting for you to rise. There's something that happens long before words are spoken, before names are exchanged, before roles are defined. It's subtle. It's energetic. It's spiritual. A narcissist can walk into a room full of people, and somehow, without even realizing how, they'll find you. The one with the light. The one with the softness, the empathy, the depth. The one with the mark. It's not a conscious choice. It's an instinct. Like a moth drawn to flame, but not to admire it, to extinguish it. Narcissists are subconsciously pulled to the energy of those who carry this spiritual mark, because it represents everything they are not. Authenticity, vulnerability, intuition, purpose, light. These are the very qualities that expose a narcissist's false self, and nothing terrifies them more than being truly seen. That's why they are drawn to the marked ones. You shine in ways they can't replicate. And when they encounter someone who naturally radiates what they've spent their entire life faking, the war begins. They don't see your heart. They see a mirror. And that mirror reflects everything they are hiding. So they do what they know best: manipulate, confuse, diminish. They may start with admiration, flattery, and obsession. That's how they hook you, by making you feel special, seen, even chosen. But what feels like connection is actually a trap, because once they get close enough, they start to feed off your light. Slowly, subtly, until you question whether you had any to begin with. Narcissists crave control, and those with the mark are the hardest to contain, because your soul doesn't submit. Even when you love deeply, even when you give everything, there's still a part of you that knows. A whisper inside that says, this isn't right. And narcissists hate that inner knowing, that quiet strength, that sacred resistance that exists beneath your sensitivity. You see, your light threatens their illusion. They spend their entire life constructing a false identity, made of charm, lies, manipulation, and performance. But your presence makes it harder for them to maintain that facade. You don't even have to say anything. Just your energy alone begins to crack their mask. And so they shift. From admiration to resentment. From charm to cruelty. From worship to war. Not because you changed, but because your truth became unbearable. They want your power, but not your healing. They want your light, but not your boundaries. They want your love, but not your soul. And when they realize they can't own you, when they feel your spirit slipping away, or worse, awakening, they panic. That's when the real attacks begin. The smear campaigns, the gaslighting, the emotional manipulation, the spiritual confusion. They'll do everything they can to convince you that the problem is you. Because if you ever realize who you really are, if you ever remember that you're marked by something greater, they lose all control. That's why the most painful relationships often happen to the most awakened souls. It's not karma. It's not punishment. It's a pattern. The brighter the light, the louder the darkness becomes. Narcissists don't target just anyone. They target those who threaten their illusion of superiority. Those who love deeply. Those who trust too easily. Those who carry divine energy they haven't yet learned to protect. But here's a deeper truth. The narcissist's attack is often the beginning of your awakening. It's through that pain that many marked ones finally rise. When the narcissist pushes you to the edge, something ancient awakens. Something sacred. A voice that says, no more. A fire that says, I remember now. A force that breaks cycles that have existed for generations. And it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, silence, tears, reflection. But one day, you look in the mirror and see yourself again. Not the version the narcissist tried to shape, but the one you were always meant to be. And from that point on, the narcissist can no longer reach you. Not because they are gone, but because their tactics stop working. You no longer shrink when they belittle. You no longer chase when they withhold. You no longer confuse trauma with love. You're free, not just from them, but from the wound that drew them in. And that's the true power of the mark. It doesn't just make you a target. It also makes you untouchable once you awaken. The narcissist may try to erase your identity, but your soul was written in eternal ink. They may try to destroy your worth, but your value was never defined by their opinion. They may try to control your light, but your light doesn't belong to them. It never did. So if you've been wondering why certain people treated you like prey, if you've questioned why you were so deeply wounded by someone who claimed to love you, if you've struggled to understand why your empathy felt like a curse, know this. It's because of the mark. They sensed it before you did. And they tried to break it before you even knew what it was. But they failed. Because here you are, rising, healing, remembering, and the same force that marked you is the one guiding you home. Not just to safety, but to sovereignty. Not just to survival, but to power. The kind of power narcissists will never understand, because it doesn't dominate. It liberates. What if I told you that what happened to you wasn't just emotional abuse? That it wasn't just about manipulation, gaslighting, or control, but something far deeper, something spiritual, something ancient. When a narcissist targets a chosen one, it isn't a typical relationship. It's not a random connection. It's energetic warfare, a battle between darkness and light, illusion and truth, ego and soul. And it doesn't just affect your heart. It shakes your spirit. From the outside, it might look like just another toxic relationship. But for those who live it, for the ones who feel it deep in their bones, it becomes clear. This is more than just pain. It's a test. A storm sent not to drown you, but to awaken something sacred inside of you. You see, narcissists aren't just drawn to your kindness. They are drawn to your light. And that light isn't soft, it's divine. It carries truth. It sees through masks. It disrupts lies without speaking a word. And that terrifies the narcissist. Because they live inside a world they've built on illusion. They wear a false self like armor, made of charm, status, appearance, and control. But when they come face to face with someone marked by truth, that mask begins to crack. That's why the narcissist wages war, not with fists, but with energy. They confuse you, belittle you, drain you. Not because they are strong, but because they sense your potential. They feel your divine light, even if you don't see it yet. And their ego can't stand it. It rises like a beast, desperate to dominate what it can't understand. And so, the chosen one becomes the battlefield. But here's the part most people miss. This battle isn't happening on the surface. It's happening in the unseen. In your energy field. In your emotions. In your dreams. Narcissists don't just hurt you. They infiltrate you. They get inside your thoughts, your identity, your sense of reality. They turn your soul against itself until you forget who you are. Because that's the goal. To disconnect you from your source. From your light. From the truth that you were chosen long before they ever entered your life. And they know, deep down, that if you ever wake up to that truth, their power over you disappears. So they fight. They lie. They seduce. They twist. They drain. All to keep you asleep. All to keep your energy bound to their illusion. But here's what they can't control. The moment when the chosen one remembers. It doesn't always happen with a big moment. Sometimes it's quiet. A single tear. A whisper. A night you can't sleep, but your spirit suddenly speaks. A flash of clarity. A moment of stillness where you hear something greater than fear. And that's when it begins. The shift. The light starts to return. The confusion starts to fade. And the narcissist starts to panic. Because when a chosen one starts to rise, the energetic dynamic flips. What once drained you begins to fuel you. What once controlled you loses its grip. And the narcissist, for all their games, feels it. They feel the silence, the space, the power coming back to you. And that's when their tactics escalate. Not because they are winning, but because they are losing. This is why the final phase of the battle is the most intense. The narcissist will say anything, do anything, play victim, rage, apologize, blame, mirror, all to pull you back into the old frequency, the one where you doubted yourself. But now, you're different. Now, you see. Now, you feel the war beneath the words. And that awareness becomes your protection. Because once you understand that this is a spiritual battle, you stop fighting it with logic. You stop arguing, explaining, proving. You don't need to. You step back. You detach. You reclaim your energy. You cleanse your space. You pray. You ground. You reconnect to God, to Source, to your higher self. And in that sacred space, the narcissist loses access to your field. That's the real victory. Not revenge. Not confrontation. And this is the spiritual lesson in all of it. Your light was never the problem. It was the threat to their illusion. Your compassion wasn't weakness. It was power. Your intuition wasn't paranoia. It was protection. Your sensitivity wasn't a flaw. It was sacred. You were never too much. You were too real. This wasn't just about survival. It was about remembrance. You didn't just walk away from a narcissist. You walked back into yourself. You didn't just break free from control. You broke through the spiritual warfare designed to keep you small. And now, you're no longer on the battlefield. You're on sacred ground. So, if you've been wondering why it hurt so much, why it felt like your soul was being attacked, now you know. You were in a war that had nothing to do with just emotions. It was your divine light vs their starving ego. And you made it through. And you're still rising. Let that sink in. Because now, your light is no longer a target. It's a weapon of truth. And it's time to use it, not to fight, but to shine. You've walked through fires most people couldn't even imagine. And yet, you still stand. You've been betrayed in ways that left you questioning your own worth. You've been targeted by people who wore masks of love, only to reveal faces of cruelty. And in your darkest moments, you felt completely alone, misunderstood, abandoned, even cursed. But here's the truth no one ever told you. The pain you've endured wasn't punishment. It was proof. Proof that there's something different about you. Something sacred. And whether you realized it or not, that mark on your left hand, whether physical, energetic, or spiritual was there long before the battles began. You didn't attract the narcissist by accident. They saw it before you did. They felt something in you that threatened their illusion of control. You didn't speak your power, but it pulsed through your silence. You didn't fight back right away, but your soul refused to break. The narcissist wasn't just cruel. They were drawn to the light you didn't even know you were carrying. They came to silence it, to twist it, to erase it, but they couldn't. Every attack, every lie, every moment they tried to rewrite your reality only revealed that you were never average. The mark on your left hand is a signature of divine selection, a spiritual fingerprint that separates you from the masses. You carry a frequency they cannot match, a depth they cannot reach. That's why they used every trick, every manipulation, every weapon of confusion and shame, not to kill you, but to dim you, because your presence reminds them of what they lost. And still, despite everything, you kept rising, you kept healing, and with every step forward, you took back what was always yours. The pain you survived was not weakness. It was initiation, a sacred passage only the marked endure, a proving ground for the ones chosen to break cycles, heal bloodlines, and lead others through darkness. So if your journey has been long, if your wounds are still raw, let this be your confirmation. You were never meant to blend in. You were never meant to bow down. You were born marked. And everything you've survived is proof that the light in you, the one they feared, the one they fought, is still shining. And it always will. Sometimes, the signs are so subtle you almost miss them. A strange tingling in your left hand when you're about to make a big decision. A pulse, a vibration, a sensation that doesn't come from anything physical, yet feels completely real. You may have looked at your palm one day and noticed a line that wasn't there before, a symbol that showed up out of nowhere, or one you kept drawing as a child without knowing why. These signs are not coincidences. They are whispers from the divine. They are confirmation that you are marked, not in ink, but in energy. You are one of the few, the chosen. And the left hand, in spiritual terms, is the hand of receiving, the hand of intuition, the gateway between the seen and unseen. This is why, in times of spiritual crisis or awakening, you may feel sensations radiating from your left side. It's your spirit being called back into awareness. And then come the dreams. Recurring symbols, animals that speak, hands reaching for you, or visions of ancient places you've never visited in this lifetime. Yet they feel familiar. Sometimes you wake up with a deep sense of purpose, even if you can't explain why. Other times, you dream of surviving floods, fires, or falling, only to rise again. That's not your imagination. That's your soul remembering who you are. And in waking life, these signs multiply when your spirit is being tested. You may start seeing certain numbers, 1111, 222, or sevens, or feathers, keys, or specific names appearing over and over. These are signals meant to guide you back. They appear most when you are on the verge of forgetting your power, and they quietly say, you are not alone. You are marked. Remember who you are. Some people notice animals behaving strangely around them. Cats watching you with unusual intensity. Birds circling. Dogs gravitating toward you in silence, like they know something others don't. Because they do. Nature senses marked souls. And so do people. You may notice that strangers feel drawn to you, confiding things they've never told anyone. Or, on the opposite end, some people seem to dislike you without cause, to push you away, to look at you with unease. That's because your presence stays something inside them. You carry truth. You carry memory. And in a world addicted to illusion, that's unsettling. Look at your life. The pattern of near-death experiences, betrayals, sudden awakenings, or losses that shattered your world. They weren't random. They were part of your soul's unfolding. Marked ones go through intense purification, not because they are being punished, but because their mission is sacred. You are not just healing yourself. You are healing generations, and the world tests those it fears the most. The pain you've endured, the isolation you've felt, the loneliness, they are part of the mark. You were pulled away not to be broken, but to be rebuilt stronger, deeper, purer. You carry ancient DNA. Your soul remembers lives before this one. And while others chase validation and power, your spirit longs for truth, for meaning, for the divine. The mark reveals itself in different ways to different people. For some, it's the left hand that burns during meditation. For others, it's a scar that won't fade. For you, it may be the ability to hear beyond words, to sense lies in voices, to feel the weight of a room without anyone speaking. You may find yourself crying during certain songs, or feeling waves of emotion that aren't even yours. And you've probably known this since you were a child. You didn't fit in, not because you were broken, but because you were ahead. You spoke of things that made adults uncomfortable. You saw truth behind smiles. You asked questions no one had answers for. That's not rebellion, that's remembrance. You were marked then. You are marked now. And yes, it's a heavy calling, but it's also beautiful. Because once you see the signs and accept who you are, you stop chasing love that wounds you. You stop explaining your worth. You stop shrinking for the comfort of others. You start walking in your divine assignment. You start awakening others just by being yourself. You stop being a victim and become a vessel. So the next time your left hand tingles without reason, the next time a strange dream leaves you feeling changed, the next time someone says, "You're different," with wonder or with fear, know that it's not just in your head. You're not making it up. You are the marked one, the one who remembers, the one who was chosen, and the one who is now awakening others just by surviving. And the pain you survived, the betrayals, the isolation, the years of spiritual warfare, it proves it. The narcissists sensed the mark before you did. They tried to break it, but they only revealed what you carry. You were born marked, and now it's time to walk in that truth. It's not your strength that scares the narcissist. It's not your voice, your beauty, or even your intelligence. What terrifies them most is the moment you wake up, the moment you realize that you've been marked, chosen, the moment the fog begins to lift and you start seeing clearly. They feel it. Their hold on you starts to slip. You don't flinch the same way anymore. You're not so easily baited by guilt or fear. You don't chase the validation they once dangled like a carrot. And that's when the narcissist begins to panic. Because their power was never physical. It was psychological, emotional, spiritual. You were the battery that kept their illusion alive. But once the veil is lifted, once you remember who you are, their game ends. Your awakening is their worst nightmare. They've always sensed something different in you, long before you knew it yourself. Maybe it was your sensitivity, your kindness, your way of seeing through the darkness with compassion. Maybe it was the mark, spiritual, energetic, ancestral, that vibrated in a frequency they didn't understand but instinctively wanted to crush. Narcissists are drawn to light, not because they want to bask in it, but because they want to extinguish it. Your light exposes their emptiness. It reminds them of what they'll never be. So they try to shrink you, gaslight you, tear you down and twist your sense of reality. But here's the truth they don't want you to remember. Their control only ever worked because you hadn't awakened yet. The spiritual mark on your left hand, whether it's a line, a scar, a symbol in a dream, or a pulse of energy that flares up in moments of truth, is a reminder that your path was never meant to be easy. It was meant to be divine. The attacks, the isolation, the betrayals, none of it was random. It was preparation. Pressure creates diamonds, after all. And that's what you are. Narcissists can sense the chosen ones, often before the chosen one recognizes themselves. That's why they target you. That's why they love-bombed you, then devalued you, then discarded you, and kept hovering back. They needed access to your light. But the moment you start questioning them, setting boundaries, or even silently reclaiming your wife. They feel it like a storm approaching. They fear your healing, because a healed chosen one is untouchable. You don't react the same way. You don't need their approval. You stop explaining yourself. You walk in truth, and truth is poison to a narcissist. It shatters their illusions, dismantles their false self. Their mask begins to crack. You were never crazy. You were awakening. And now, you see them clearly. They fear that you'll share what you've learned, that you'll help others break free, that your voice will rise from the ashes and speak truth to those still caught in the web. Because a marked soul, awakened, aware, and aligned, becomes a threat to every narcissistic system built on control and illusion. They fear your light because it reminds them they have none. But here's the beautiful part. Once you awaken, you no longer need to fight them. You outgrow them. You rise. And the higher you rise, the smaller they become in your rearview mirror. Their tricks, their tactics, their manipulation, it all stops working. You are no longer food for their ego. You've become fire. So if you're feeling the shift, the pull back to yourself, trust it. If you're seeing patterns, signs, symbols on your hand, in your dreams, or in moments of deep silence, trust that too. The universe is reminding you, you are not alone, you are not broken, and you were never meant to stay asleep. Your mark is real. Your calling is sacred. And your awakening is the very thing the narcissist hoped would never happen. But it did. And now, you walk in a power they can't touch. You speak with a voice they can't silence. You carry a light they can't dim. That is their greatest fear. They say the right hand gives, but the left hand receives. In spiritual teachings across ancient cultures, the left hand is seen as a sacred gateway, not just of touch or action, but of divine reception. It's the hand through which the universe speaks softly into the soul. And for those who are marked, that mark doesn't show up randomly. It appears where it's meant to, the hand designed to receive the higher calling. This is the portal, the point where your energy field is most open to spiritual downloads. The left hand is sensitive, almost like an antenna tuned to higher frequencies. It's the hand that rests over your heart when you're in pain. The hand you extend when seeking guidance in prayer. The one that trembles when truth hits your spirit like thunder. In the stories passed through mystics and healers, the left hand was always the symbol of intuition, of divine guidance entering the body. While the world teaches us to use the right hand for action, control, and dominance, it is the left that listens. And it's no coincidence that those who carry a hidden mark of the divine often find it here. Have you ever felt a tingling in your left palm out of nowhere? Or a sudden heat, like energy pouring into your body from an invisible source? Have lines on your hand shifted, darkened, or revealed strange shapes, symbols that make no sense to others but speak volumes to your spirit? That is not your imagination. That is the call. Some say this mark shows up in childhood, long before the battles begin. Others find it later, after surviving deep trauma or betrayal, a sign sealed into their skin like a scar from heaven. It's not always a literal mark. Sometimes it's a pattern of energy. Sometimes it's a sensation that comes when you're near truth or danger. But those who have it always feel it. And this is why narcissists are instinctively drawn to you. They don't know why, but they feel it. They sense that you carry something rare. A light. A protection. Something they were never given and can never steal. Your left hand receives love directly from the divine. And to someone who feeds on control, that's terrifying. You don't need their approval. You don't need their lies. You are connected to something far bigger than their games. That's why they try so hard to break you. They touch your left hand and feel resistance. Not physical, spiritual. They lash out because they know they can't own you. Not fully. You might fall. You might even forget who you are for a time. But that mark remains. And the moment you remember, the game is over. Their influence fades. Their mask slips. Because the energy pouring into you is stronger than anything they can fake. The left hand has always been misunderstood. In some cultures, it was labeled unclean, not because it was, but because it held power that couldn't be controlled. The feminine energy, the intuitive force, the knowing that doesn't come from books but from divine download. This was feared, especially by those who needed everyone blind and obedient. But you weren't made to obey darkness. You were made to carry light. And that mark on your left hand, whether seen or unseen, is proof. Every time you felt energy rush through you during prayer, every dream that warned you before the storm, every silent whisper that saved you from disaster, that's your left hand receiving. That's your soul catching fire with wisdom not of this world. And now you understand why it had to be the left. It's not a flaw. It's not a trick. It's not random. It's where your divine purpose entered your being. So protect that hand. Watch where you let it touch. Be mindful of who tries to hold it. Because when someone grasps your left hand, they are not just holding skin and bone. They are touching your access point to heaven, the place where your strength flows in, the gate where angels pour in wisdom, peace, and clarity. To the narcissist, that hand is a threat. It's your armor. It's the signal that you're not theirs to control. It's why, despite everything they tried, you're still here, still rising, still feeling something sacred when the world grows silent. And one day, you'll meet others like you. People who carry a similar fire. People whose left hands glow with invisible light. And you'll know, not with your eyes, but with that subtle current running through your palm, that you were never alone. That you are marked for something eternal. Something holy. Something unbreakable. So if your left hand has ever felt different, if it has pulsed during moments of clarity, if it has carried signs or patterns you couldn't explain, trust it. It's not just a part of your body. It's a message. It's your link to the divine. And it was chosen, just like you. This is the truth they don't want you to know. But now you do. And once you awaken to it, you can never be touched the same way again. They tried to silence you, didn't they? With cruel words, twisted truths, and manipulations dressed as love. They gaslighted you until you questioned your own reality. But still, something within you never gave up. That quiet strength, that deep knowing, it was the mark. A sacred imprint on your soul that existed long before they showed up. You were marked before birth, and no narcissist can erase what heaven has written. This mark isn't physical alone. Sure, some feel it in their left hand, an odd sensation, a line that seems out of place, warmth during prayer or crisis. But more than that, it's energetic. It's in the way your spirit absorbs pain yet turns it into compassion. It's how you feel the room shift before anyone speaks. It's the way your presence rattles the insecure. Because narcissists, those ruled by ego, by illusion, by the need to dominate, sense it. They may not understand it, but they recognize it. And they fear it. So they do what they always do. They come close pretending to love, admire, or need you. But soon, the mask slips. They begin to pick at your confidence. They isolate you. They mock your intuition. They throw your light into question. Why? Because your mark reminds them of everything they are not, and everything they can never be. They want control, but the mark is divine. It answers only to the source. That's why no amount of abuse could extinguish your inner fire. That's why even in your darkest nights, you kept waking up, searching, hoping. You're not just a survivor. You're a soul with a mission. The narcissist thinks if they twist your identity, they can overwrite your truth. But the mark isn't external ink. It's soul code. It's encoded in your aura, your intuition, your resilience. It is seen by the unseen realm, whispered by angels, and honored by time itself. Every lie they told about you only activated it more. Every betrayal carved it deeper. Every tear watered it into bloom. And when you awaken to it, really awaken, they panic. They lose their grip. Because their power was never real. It was borrowed from your unawareness. The moment you remember who you are, the manipulation fails. Their tactics bounce off. They lose access. And they know it. So they try harder. They'll beg, love bomb, threaten, smear your name. But nothing sticks. Because now you see clearly. The narcissist's entire game was built on illusion. And illusions cannot touch the eternal. Your mark is a covenant between you and the divine. Not even your own doubts can void it. And certainly not their cruelty. The pain you survived wasn't pointless. It shaped you. But it didn't define you. What defines you is that you still carry light. You still choose compassion. You still heal. Not just for yourself, but for others. That's the power of the marked ones. You don't just walk away. You rise. And in rising, you break cycles. You shift legacies. You become the mirror they cannot bear to look into. So if you ever feel like you're too sensitive, too forgiving, too spiritual in a world that worships ego, remember, that's not weakness. That's your soul remembering its true nature. That's your mark pulsing with purpose. You are not here to be erased. You are here to be revealed. And no narcissist, no matter how clever or cruel, can touch that truth. Have you ever felt like you didn't belong in this world? Like something about you just didn't quite fit? Like no matter how hard you tried to blend in, to stay small, to stay quiet, life kept pushing you into the fire? Maybe you've been wondering why you've had to endure more than most. Why you've always felt different, more sensitive, more intuitive, more burdened, and somehow more aware. The truth is, you were never meant to blend in. You were never meant to walk the easy path or live a quiet, numb life. You were chosen. Chosen by something greater than this world. By a divine intelligence that saw your soul before it ever entered the womb. And with that choosing came a calling. One you didn't ask for, but one your spirit knew you were capable of. You were chosen to break generational curses, to be the one in your bloodline who said, "This ends with me." You were sent to shine a light in places that have known nothing but darkness for decades, sometimes centuries. You were born with the ability to see what others pretend not to see, to feel what others bury, and to speak truths that others are too afraid to name. That's why you've been tested so much. That's why you've been surrounded by narcissists. In your family, in relationships, in work, even in friendships. You were placed in environments where ego reigned, where emotional manipulation was normalized, where truth was punished and silence was rewarded. Not as a victim, but as a warrior. You had to experience the poison to create the antidote. You had to be lied to so you could value honesty. You had to be betrayed so you could understand loyalty. You had to be isolated so you would finally hear your soul speaking louder than the world. That's why your path has been anything but easy. Because healing a lineage, awakening from generational sleep, and facing demons that others ran from, that takes a different kind of strength. And you were chosen for it. The narcissists you've encountered weren't random. They saw the light in you before you saw it yourself. Something in your energy challenged them. Your very presence was a threat, not because you were trying to fight them, but because your authenticity exposed their illusion. Your love made them feel empty. Your truth made their lies unravel. Your calm exposed their chaos. And so, they tried to break you with gaslighting, betrayal, triangulation, control, shame, and guilt. But no matter how many times they tried to dim your light, they never could, because you were marked, spiritually marked, and what's written on your soul cannot be erased by human hands. You were chosen because you're not just strong, you're spiritually resilient. You carry ancient wisdom in your bones. You have a heart that's been broken open so wide that it became a portal for others to heal. You've walked through the fire and came out with eyes that see beyond the veil. You were chosen not just to survive narcissistic abuse, but to transcend it, to become the example of what healing looks like, to guide others out of the fog, to say, yes, I've been there, but that's not where my story ends. And let's be honest, there were times you wanted to give up, times you questioned if the pain would ever stop, Times you sat in silence, crying out to God or the universe, asking, why me? But now, you're starting to see. Every time you were broken, something sacred was being rebuilt. Every time you lost someone toxic, you gained more of yourself. Every tear was a seed planted in the soil of your purpose. You weren't being punished. You were being prepared. Prepared to speak truth in rooms where lies used to dominate. Prepared to love deeply in a world that forgot what real love is. Prepared to stand tall, even when standing meant standing alone. And here's the part you may not have realized yet. Your healing is already working backwards. The more you wake up, the more your ancestors are being set free. The more you speak your truth, the more your children and their children will live in clarity. You're not just healing for yourself. You're healing for an entire bloodline that's been waiting for someone like you. That's why it's so hard. That's why the pressure feels unbearable at times. Because you're carrying generations on your shoulders. But you weren't chosen to carry it forever. You were chosen to end it. You're not crazy for seeing through the games. You're not too sensitive for feeling the shifts in energy when a narcissist walks into the room. You're not imagining it when you dream about symbols, hands tingling, or strange synchronicities that others can't explain. That's your soul remembering who it is. That's your intuition sharpening. That's your divine assignment whispering. Keep going. You're almost there. And yes, some people will resent you for changing. They'll say you've become distant, different, disconnected. But that's only because they can't reach you anymore. Because once you awaken, you become unshakable. So here's what I need you to know. You are not alone. Others are awakening too. Other marked souls are rising up in their own dark places, reclaiming their light, and realizing that narcissistic abuse was never about their weakness. It was about their light. And when that light turns inward and becomes awareness, the narcissist loses their grip. You break free. You stop reacting. You start creating. You move from surviving to thriving. And suddenly, you're no longer just chosen. You're becoming the chooser. The one who decides what stays and what goes. The one who draws boundaries with ease. The one who can love deeply, but also walk away without guilt. So the next time you wonder why your path has been so hard, remember this. You were chosen because you were strong enough to change it all. You were chosen because your light was built for the darkness. You were chosen because no one else could do what you came here to do. When a narcissist encounters someone with a mark, someone truly chosen, something deep inside them stays. It's not admiration. It's not curiosity. It's fear. Pure, primal fear cloaked in ego, manipulation, and fake charm. They sense it before you do. Before you ever recognize your own power, the narcissist already sees it like a threat approaching in silence. Because your presence isn't ordinary, it's divine. You carry a light they cannot replicate, cannot steal, and certainly cannot extinguish. That's why their reaction isn't subtle. It's sabotage. At first, they may love bomb you. Not because they love you, but because they want access to your power. They mirror your goodness, your empathy, your depth, all so they can get close enough to plant seeds of self-doubt.